Welcome to Wellbeing Unwrapped, the show where real talk leads to real transformation.
I'm Jamie McKagan, fitness trainer and life coach.
And I'm Tracy Carroll, a self-esteem and mindset coach. And on today's episode, we're unwrapping the art of saying no and setting boundaries for your mental health.
Hello, do you struggle to say no to family, friends or colleagues without feeling guilty? Do you find yourself overwhelmed because you take on too much? Are you ready to set boundaries but don't know where to start? Saying no is one of the most powerful acts of self-care, yet many of us struggle to set boundaries for fear of letting people down or being judged. In today's episode, we'll explore why setting boundaries is crucial for your mental health, common barriers to saying no and how to overcome them, and of course, our top practical tips that you can implement today to confidently set boundaries and protect your time, energy and peace. Well, Tracy, I'm looking forward to this episode.
I think this is going to be a really, really good episode. And there are so many people that struggle with this.
This has probably been one of the biggest backdrops to my life.
And mine.
is saying no. And we said, didn't we, before we came and on air, as it were, if we could get back the time we'd spent doing tasks or attending events we never wanted to go to in the first place, we'd have about another 10 years of life, wouldn't we?
We'd be a lot happier. The thing is, you either end up burning yourself out, you end up missing out on things that actually are important to you, or you end up doing things that just don't bring you joy. And as we were talking about earlier, life's too short.
Life is too short.
So we really do have to. It's not. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, it's being selfish," but it's given a really bad stigma, isn't it? When people say, "Oh, you're being selfish," but it's not selfish in that negative way. It's putting yourself first. Why is any one person and their happiness, their time, their energy more important than somebody else?
I agree. And I know I said to you I wanted to just get this in, which was a fabulous couple of lines that I found, which was the consequences of always saying yes. You say no to the things you love when you say yes to something you don't enjoy. You say no to your dreams when you say yes to a job you don't love. And you say no to your social life when you say yes to working overtime. So Tracy, why do you think we struggle with saying no? And what do you think some of the main barriers to saying no are?
Okay, I think a lot of people fear rejection.
Massive one.
It's a huge one, isn't it? It's like, if I turn around and say, no, I can't do that for you, or no, I don't want to do that, am I going to get rejected? Is that person going to think less of me? Are they going to end the friendship or the relationship? Are they going to start treating me different? Then it's awkward. Or actually, will they be all right, but then will I feel guilty? That's another thing. There's a lot of guilt around it. Oh, I should have helped that person, or I should have gone. It would have made them happy. But especially us women.
I was going to, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more, aren't we, later on, the gender differences to saying no. And you are so right, aren't you? There's a big fear of rejection.
Yes.
And I know that's definitely been part of why I haven't wanted to say no in the past.
Yeah.
Is the rejection from that person, and also then what that person might say about me to other people.
Yeah, I mean,
who
what
then
was
also
they're then going to sort of taint those people's view of you. So
Yes.
you saying, I don't know, no, I can't pick up your dry cleaning, or something silly like that. Is that person? Is it going to go from that person to your entire friendship group, as an example? If you're at that point in your life when you've got a big friendship group, are they then going to start looking at you differently? Is he or she going to turn around and say, oh, well, I really needed her to do such and such and she didn't do it. Oh my God, she put herself first.
Yeah.
Negativity vibes everywhere. And all of a sudden, it's just like, right, actually, I'm now being isolated.
Gossiped about.
And that's if you're not going to get confrontation, which is a whole other issue.
Well, that is a whole other issue.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I joke about it, but I always say I'd rather run in the opposite direction screaming than have confrontation.
We don't like confrontation.
Because I don't
do
like
we?
confrontation.
No, another gendered difference there.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there's all of these negative connotations to protecting your time, your energy, your enjoyment out of life.
Yes. And I think when you say the fear of rejection, it's such a big one, isn't it? And we were just saying, you know, what might that person then say to a wider group of people? And I think you're making those quick decisions in your mind, aren't you? And potentially catastrophizing and thinking, well, what impact could that then have on, you know, I don't know, my family and my work? Do one of this person's friends who I'm about to say no to, do they know someone that I work with? So we're diving forward, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, a week and thinking, what ramifications could this have?
Yeah.
And what I've thought lately is I think that perhaps I never somebody once gave me some great advice when I started one of my little businesses that I've started over the years, and they said, you need to set your stall out from the very beginning because it's very difficult to row back. And I wonder if when I've entered into certain relationships, I have been too, what's the word I'm looking for, too accommodating.
Yeah.
And so people then think that they can put these things upon me.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because some people don't seem to get put upon very much. And I wonder if that's because they set out their stall from the beginning.
Yeah.
That you know, they're not going to be put upon.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in an ideal world, if you've got your boundaries...
There you go, that's the word I'm looking for.
You know where you stand, they know where they stand.
Yes.
Yes, that in an ideal world, that is. But the thing is,
I know what you're going to say.
There are different
yes.
versions of saying no in terms of, is it that someone's asking you to do something?
Yeah.
Is it that somebody is just inviting you somewhere?
Yes.
Because that wouldn't necessarily, I mean...
Be putting upon.
It wouldn't be being put upon, would it?
No.
And a boundary is not going to...
No.
It's not at play there. If somebody invites you somewhere, but you just don't want to go, or you're just not feeling like it, or whatever. So there's lots of different versions, isn't there?
And it's interesting, listeners. So we've got the person who might put upon you. Now, I had a friend for a short period of time, and she was a cheeky girl, and she was cheeky from the start, right? I ended up giving her a lift to the place that we met at.
Right.
I think we were in contact for about 18 months. She was a phoner, so she'd always phone instead of text. So these were real life things that happened.
Right.
She'd phone, where are you? I said, I'm just in the car park at Tesco. She'd say, while you're in there, get me 2 boxes of cat food.
Oh, no.
Where are you? I said, I'm just up in wherever I was, somewhere in Essex, doing a treatment with this woman. She said, you're right by my skincare place. Pop in, I've run out of moisturising cream. And those are two examples. So that's what she was like.
Right. Oh, God.
So you think, and I did. And I think, God, how can I say no? Because I am actually right here. But actually you are, you know, taking the something, aren't you?
The proverbial.
To me, that was a put upon.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't, it's not my character to be like that. I don't want to then pick up, then you owe me money, then we've got, it's just all
no.
You know, you should be more organised. But I'm apparently quite rigid. So I've been told, but I don't.
I mean, once is like a huge favour.
No, but this was all the time.
Yeah,
and
that's the problem. Once you've done it once, maybe you could stop. But once you've done it twice, Then it's a thing, and then it's you did it last time. Why not now? That's
the friendship ended.
Thank God for that.
It was a course I did, and this person borrowed all my notes for the course in the end, all my essay. So you see the way it was going.
Yeah, okay.
But very difficult to say no because we were on a course together. As soon as that course had ended,
then it was easy.
Moved away,
yeah,
and that was that. So they're saying no in that scenario, which we would hope would be easier because those people generally are chancers, aren't they? And they kind of know they're being a bit cheeky.
And it should be easier because, especially in that scenario, you were on a course.
Yes.
You knew that the course was going to end.
I knew it was going to end.
So it wasn't like a lifelong friendship.
I wasn't in an office with her either.
You weren't going to be, so it was like a week, 2 weeks or whatever. It should have been easier. But I also feel the awkwardness that must have come from that.
Yeah.
You don't want to say no. And had you known that it was going to become repetitive, maybe you would have. But how? That's what the listeners want to know. And we will have some tips later on in the end of the show.
We will have some tips. So we've got the saying no in that scenario, where it really is a bit of an imposition on your time, especially when you haven't known the person that long, to ask you to do these things.
Yeah.
But then we've got, like you say, the saying no to someone that maybe genuinely is a friend.
Yeah.
And it's a social event.
Yeah.
And you do feel bad, but for whatever reason, maybe you just don't want to go. And there could be lots of reasons.
Yeah, you don't want to go, or you're feeling a bit under the weather, or you've been out loads and you're just exhausted, or anything.
Yeah, and I think that becomes even harder. And I think you're right. We then worry. We get the guilt that then also comes into the rejection, because we feel guilty about not attending that person's whatever it might be.
And the guilt of potentially disappointing or upsetting them.
And I see lots of women in my business currently, and especially around this time of year, and they come in and they are absolutely, I can't even think of the word, but they are so tired. And you can see it. They are exhausted. And they say to me, I've been out every night. And I say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And they say, I can't say no. It's been a big birthday. It's been the Christmas celebration, if it's that time of year. It's been this or that, whatever it might be. And because they can't say no, they are damaging their own health.
Yeah, see, that's not good.
Crawling through the door. I mean, I say crawling, they're not crawling, but, they are really exhausted, which then impacts what they can do in the session, then impacts what they've eaten that week.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
It's then impacted the quality of their sleep, all because they feel they have to say yes and hold down a full-time job.
Yeah.
And with most of them look after children.
Yeah, and the house and everything
and
else.
And I think the easiest thing here is for you to say to just 2 out of the 5 evenings, I am just too tired.
Yeah.
I need to rest.
The question that brings to mind there, though, is when they say I just can't say no, is it that they can't say no to the other person or to themselves? Is there an element of FOMO?
Potentially. I think FOMO, and for a lot of them, guilt.
Yeah.
So they feel guilty to this friend, that friend, family member for not going. These are typically people that have got a lot of friends.
Yeah.
That struggle with that. I can't put myself in that bracket.
No, me neither.
But some people are, my brother is lots and lots of friends. So therefore there's always something going on, someone's birthday or something. So I think that can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
Saying no in that circumstance, and I do see that a lot.
But I mean, we'll touch on this later. It comes back to if you're saying yes to them,
saying no to yourself.
You're saying no to yourself.
I know.
And when it's going to impact your health, it's not necessarily. I mean, your time is precious, as we've said.
Yes, and limited.
Life is short anyway. But time is precious. But your health and your well-being, hence why we do the podcast, is really, really important. So, if FOMO's involved, it's got to be like there'll be other parties. If you are worried about the guilt of for other people, then see which ones are the most important and speak to the other people and say, look, I know it's your birthday and I really want to be there, but I'm absolutely exhausted and I can't make myself ill and I'm not going to enjoy myself as much, which maybe you won't then enjoy yourself celebrating. You'll think, oh, she's being miserable or whatever, and I don't want to have a dampener on the party, the event, the weekend. How about me and you or a small group of friends, we do something in a month's time
or 2 weeks.
Offer an alternative, but have that honest communication, that honest conversation to say, this is literally all about me and I'm just trying to, I don't want to disappoint you, but I've got to take care of myself. It's not that I don't care about you. It's not that I don't want to celebrate. It's not that you're not important. I'm being sensible and I'd absolutely love to celebrate with you, whatever it is, but can we just postpone it? And look at it this way, you get to celebrate twice.
Always a positive.
Spin it round.
I feel Tracy, we've spoken a lot about this before we came on air, haven't we? That certainly when I was younger, it was far easier to do lots of things and work in the day and go out in the evening because I had
Oh my goodness, yeah.
much more energy.
I don't know where that went.
I don't know where that went. As I get older, so shall I say it again?
Go on.
I'm nearly 50. But I might be 50
Exactly,
by the time this episode goes out. I have to be more with my energy.
Yeah.
I have to decide where my energy is going to go because it's not never ending.
No, it's not infinite anymore.
It's not infinite. And I think we've spoken in other episodes about hormone levels.
Yeah.
And how that has an impact on energy and fatigue and tiredness and diet. I think it really is important to look after ourselves and to prioritise your health because it's not just feeling a bit tired. You can actually feel rotten the next day if you have work all day and then go out of a night.
Yeah.
So I do think it's important. Tying in with all of that is obviously past experience and confrontation.
Oh.
Listeners, some people will know, I've got a few, areas that I'm passionate about. This is one of them. Who's had a past experience where something negative has happened? That can really make you worried to say no, can't it?
Yeah, because going a little bit sciencey just for a second before you go into your example. Negativity or anything that's negative is a bad thing, obviously, as people will understand. But in terms of our minds, we constitute that as pain. So fear of rejection, or any kind of fear is a pain anyway. Guilt is a negative emotion, so it's a pain. They're all things the mind wants to take us away, and I've said this in practically every episode, but it's true and people need to realise it, that the mind wants to take you away from the negative stuff, the things that are bad. So when you've had an experience where maybe you have stood up for yourself or protected yourself and said, I don't want to do that, or I can't do that, or I'm too busy, or whatever it is, but you've basically said no to something, and there's been some kind of backlash or confrontation or explosion or end of a relationship, whatever, any negative response to you doing that, your mind and your body is feeling it, and it's going to remember it, and it's going to go, whoa, I don't want to do that again. And how do I stop that from happening again? Right, well, that happened because I said no. So therefore, I've got to become a yes person. I've got to say yes, because if I say yes, if I please everyone else, they're not going to backlash at me. They're not going to have a go at me. They're not going to confront me. They're not going to talk about me. I'm not going to get the negative feedback if I just say yes. Hit us with your example.
I totally agree with everything you've just said, Dan. That's really interesting that you've put some science behind it. I was going to say, it's not just about saying no, is it, to an event? It can also be when you take away something from somebody. And I once stopped a service. I mean, there's been many examples, listeners, but I'll give you a couple. This is one of the worst ones. I decided to not do a particular beauty service anymore. And I had a client, and I was going to her wedding. She'd invited me to her wedding.
Oh, okay.
Nice. And I informed the client that I was no longer going to be offering this service. And I got what I can only describe to you is a barrage of horrendous texts that night, where she rescinded my invitation to her wedding.
Oh my God.
Said that I had severely impacted her life in a negative fashion by withdrawing the service. It was just awful. It that I would never get anywhere running a business so unprofessionally.
Didn't say this to your face?
No, didn't say it to my face, no. It was just, the reaction from it was unbelievable. People are allowed to stop services. People are allowed to change jobs. Everybody else does, but I think self-employed, we get it quite a lot. So I'm not going to do this service anymore. I'm going to change and, I've
do something else.
Do something else, right? Where that's not really working.
Life has taken you in a different direction.
Exactly, but people can get very angry. And her reaction was very upsetting. And then, obviously, more recently, I couldn't go to a birthday gathering as I had something on the next day. And that was that. That was the end of a friendship. because I didn't go to a birthday gathering.
Sorry, listeners, I'm just sitting here a little bit stunned and shocked. So I'm not really sure what to say
very,
to that.
Very upsetting, you know, and that's just a couple of examples.
They're just really
upsetting. And I kind of think now, listeners, my opinion now, at nearly 50, I do get upset. I mean, you do as well, Tracy.
Yeah,
and you and
I do
both,
take stuff to heart.
I really do take it to heart. And but I just think now, no, I am not going to do what you want me to do. You weren't a friend anyway, were you?
No, that is the only thing that I'm thinking is if they were proper friends, they wouldn't have said that to you, and they certainly wouldn't have ended a friendship or rescinded an invitation over it. I'm thinking maybe people these days just are not very emotionally intelligent and they can't regulate their own emotions. And instead of saying, that's such a shame. Like as an example, you know how much I used to love Tuesdays and Thursdays. I used to do face-to-face classes with Jamie, and I absolutely loved it. And what was it? I don't think it was a Tuesday. Well, one of the days we used to do back to back. She used to kill me. But
it was both in there. We did it Tuesday to start with.
And then
listeners, I used to have Tracy for an hour and a half. We'd do boxing and then a core class. And then we changed the core to Thursday after Strong.
I absolutely loved it. It absolutely killed me.
Tracy's going to make you feel guilty now, listeners.
No,
here we go.
No. And I was disappointed when it finished. In fact, that was good old COVID, wasn't it?
Well, we finished the Tuesday before COVID.
That's right. And then
the rest.
Obviously. But obviously, I was disappointed. But that was it. There was no hard feelings. There was certainly no anger.
Well, we're sitting here now, listeners.
Exactly.
So we're okay.
We've known each other for 7 years, according to Facebook.
We have 7 years.
But there was none of those emotions.
Yeah.
It was sadness for an end of an era, and I had really enjoyed it. And it was almost like, if I'd known it was coming to an end, I would have soaked it up a little bit more.
Yes.
But life changes. Now, even if those classes were running with a dog with separation anxiety and living so much further away, I wouldn't make them anyway. But if you were still doing it, would you be angry at me? I hope not.
No.
For not coming. But do you see what I mean? Because that's what friendship is. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because I loved it so much, which actually should be a nice feeling inside, not a guilty. It should be, do you know what, that was really lovely while it lasted. It's no different to a holiday. I don't phone up Virgin or Emirates and hurl abuse at them and say, you're not having my money anymore because my holiday ended.
Yes. I think this is really interesting. I'm glad Tracy said that. And this is really, we're just segueing off, listeners. Anyone who's self-employed, and Tracy, your husband is self-employed. So we stopped the Tuesday class, listeners, didn't we? And you were saying you were disappointed in it. Just, it wasn't really viable anymore.
No, it wasn't. It was a very small class.
It was a very small class. And things changed. Tracy obviously understands that because your husband is also working for himself, and you have to make those decisions. Yeah. And I think what's sometimes hurtful, not with Tracy, but with other people, is when they get so angry and they think, well, do you not think that I also am hurt?
Yeah,
because that was my business.
Yeah.
That was something I dreamt of, created and built with my own time and energy. Yeah. And the decision is not taken lightly. And I think when people then think, oh, she's just, changed her mind and stopped doing this.
Oh, you don't care. But it's not.
You just made a decision in your sleep. Absolutely not. Spent thousands on training, thousands on setting things up. They're not decisions that are made lightly.
No.
And I am also sad.
Yeah, exactly. You're sad. You're disappointed that the way it's gone. And I know for a fact, other conversations that we've had, that, like you said, the decision wasn't made overnight. And I know
absolutely not.
That really you knew a lot sooner.
Yes.
Or you could have stopped these things a lot sooner.
Yes.
But you procrastinated because you were worried about other people, and because you were like, is this the
guilty.
right thing? And you felt guilty.
Yes.
So everyone got a lot longer of all of these aspects of these different classes that you're talking about, and then other things that you may have changed or cancelled or moved or whatever. You put a lot of thought into it, and no one has thought of your feelings. No one has thought, oh, it must be like a real shame for her. She must.
Yeah.
I thought she obviously really enjoyed it, and she built it. But yeah, to hurl abuse, and also these are the kind of people. I'm sorry to harp on, but these are the kind of people who, if their life had changed,
would stop
have dropped
using your
you,
service in a flash. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
you have to be there.
Yeah.
No, you're not allowed to change, but they are.
Yeah. And I think we see this not just in the business sense that we were saying there, but also social lives.
Yeah.
Friends that will go off and drop you for a year if they've got something else to do, and
exactly.
then come back on the scene.
And then come back, yeah.
And expect you to still be there.
Yeah. And yeah. Just
Yeah.
Anyway.
Saying no. So we got guilt, a fear of rejection, and obviously past experiences. So when you've had those negative past experiences where people have reacted badly, that can really make you worried to say no in the future.
Yeah, and the thing is, as I said before, because it's on that particular aspect, because it is a mindset thing, that will be a program driving you.
Yes.
So it won't necessarily be a conscious thought. If you turn around and said to me, could you do such and such? Obviously, it depends what it is. If it's feasible, but I don't want to do it, then that subconscious programmer is running at the speed of lightning, and I'm just going to go, yes, without consciously thinking, do I want to do it? Don't I want to do it? Because that's not what people, it's not how people think. They get asked something, and then quite often the answer's coming out before they've actually consciously gone through it in their heads and gone, do I want to do it, blah, blah, blah. Whereas some of the I suppose even the fear of rejection is a bit of a program as well. So I don't know. A lot of it is mindset.
We've got some tips for that
we
later
have got
on.
some tips for that.
Other reasons, I mean, we've said fear of perception, which is worrying about being seen negatively. We've covered that.
Yeah, and that kind of feeds into the fear of rejection, because if somebody sees you in a negative light, they're not likely to want to be your friend. They're going to reject you. So a lot of it does go back to that.
And people pleasing.
People pleasing, yeah.
We've touched on it, seeking praise and validation. So,
yeah, and trying to avoid the conflict.
Exactly. Saying yes because you want to be seen as nice or good.
Yeah.
Very common.
Yeah.
And we all
well,
want
if
to be
I'm
liked.
nice, if I'm liked, then yeah, I'm liked, aren't I?
It's that external validation, isn't it? Rather than it coming internally.
Yeah.
That we feel good about ourselves anyway.
Yes.
Not being assertive enough. Now, I've got an interesting tale here.
Okay.
So I used to work in a establishment as a freelancer.
Right.
The lady that ran it was very forthright.
Okay.
Very good businesswoman.
Yep.
Always selling her services. And one day, someone had come in for a consultation and they tried to upsell the service. The lady hadn't wanted it, but she'd bought it and she'd left. After leaving, they used to do something called a triangle where three of them would get on one person to sell the service. After she left, she phoned up and complained and said that she'd felt pressured and she didn't want to buy it. And the lady who owned it said, well, I don't know why she just didn't say no. I can't understand why would people just not say no? What's so hard in saying no? This lady was very different to me.
Right.
No problem in being blunt and saying no, and genuinely could not understand why somebody would not just say no. This woman had in fact said no,
right,
but in a quiet tone,
right,
with a lot of other words around it.
Yeah.
I don't really think that I want that.
I'm not really sure that I want that.
The sales team had piled on and not taken that. So the woman had not actually stood there, put her fist on the desk and said, no.
Yeah. But she's also not turned around and said, yes, I'd really like that, thank you.
It was obvious to me.
Yeah.
The woman didn't want the service.
Yeah.
Some people are just not assertive enough, are they?
No.
In their, not to say they have to be more assertive, but just in their demeanour and their personality, quietly spoken.
Yeah.
Not the personality type that this woman was. And I think that can cause issues in saying no, especially in those situations where they're quite high pressure and you've got alpha personalities. This is what this woman called herself.
Yeah.
Alpha personality.
Yeah.
She would say to me, there's only room for one alpha in this building and it's me.
Wow.
I wasn't there long, Tracy. Anyway, that's another story, listeners.
Do you know what? That's kind of got me going on two different aspects. One part of me is thinking, oh, she's a bit scary. And I think societal's programming makes me think, oh, God, don't want to be like her. She's probably not liked. People probably talk about her. And the other part of me is thinking, hell, we should be more like her, because she speaks her mind, she knows what she wants, and good on her.
She made a lot of sales and did very well, business-wise.
Right.
I would say there, of course, there's nothing wrong with being assertive, and I feel many women especially would benefit from being more assertive. Where I think the flaw comes is when you cannot see when other people are struggling and you don't have the EI to think, my personality in this situation is dominating and actually I'm making this person feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the skill to recognise that, you are going to make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I think you need to balance that out.
You need that balance, don't you?
Yeah, and recognise when someone is not. And what about victims? You know, victims of domestic violence, domestic abuse, who maybe don't feel confident enough to speak out. You need to be tuned into people to read the undertones. You can't just blast on through.
No,
because you miss so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah,
more assertive, but with the EI present.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Stand up for yourself, but not be overpowering, overbearing, and dominating.
Not just all about you, is it?
No.
That's what I would say to that lady. It's not just about you and your goals and bullying everyone else around you.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't come to bullying or anything like that, should it?
No.
It's the time and the place and its balance, and it actually makes me think: do more women need to boost their self-esteem? Because I do think a lot of this ties into the self-esteem. Obviously, we've got another episode
on self-esteem
itself. But I think if women, obviously in particular, obviously this can also apply to men, but if women in particular were to work on their self-esteem, then there wouldn't be such a strong sense of the fear of rejection and the conflict, because if you are secure in who you are and what you bring to the table, you don't have to be arrogant or pig-headed. But if you didn't think that by saying no to somebody and putting yourself first, that you were going to get a backlash, or that they were going to be disappointed, or you were going to lose all your friends or whatever, then you would have the confidence to put yourself first, wouldn't you? You would turn around and say that, Jamie, I can't do any more podcasts this week. I'm really, really tired. Can we do it next week? Now, I know that you have the emotional intelligence that even if you had been looking forward to it and we were going to do some more, that you would say, Tracy, I totally get it. I'm quite tired myself, not a problem. No hard feelings. It's fine. And if everyone thought that they were going to get that reaction because I'm sitting here, I know you and I know me and I'm secure in that, I think people would put themselves first a little bit more.
I agree. That's what it comes back to.
Yeah.
And being able to say no in an assertive manner that doesn't involve shouting.
Yeah.
But also quite clearly gets across that the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's not, I'll think about it. Or,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a definitive
all
no.
All of those dissembling techniques to get out of it later, and make the decision later, because then you just long it off. And
then you're going to procrastinate, and then you're going to be worried how it's come across. I mean, thinking about it, being assertive is only required if you're going up against dominating people. Because I didn't have to just be assertive to you.
No.
I didn't have to be overpowering. I didn't have to stand my ground or stamp my feet or get out of my chair and in your face. I kept my tone as normal and just said, I'm really tired. I've said no to you. If you said, oh, should we do another podcast tomorrow? I'm really tired. Can we do it next week? I've said no. I haven't had to go, no, Jamie, I'm not doing that because I'm tired and you need to accept that. It's kind of like, it's your audience. So maybe people need to choose their audience wisely too.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously I've known Tracy 7 years, but we've only recently had a lot more contact because obviously we have started a podcast together.
Yes, we have.
And it is a period, isn't it, of getting to know you, and it's been 4 months now, is it? 4 months, 5 months, 6 months we've been having conversations. And yes, we are very similar, and there's been times where Tracy has said, I can't do that today, I'm not doing this, and I've said the same to Tracy, and I hope neither one of us feel there's going to be any repercussions. And in fact, we did have a conversation very early on, didn't we, where we said there won't be that.
There won't be that, and if anything gets too much, or if you need help with this, that or the other, then we shore each other up.
Yeah,
but
and
we have
how it's
we
been.
have that relationship, and it has been, and it will continue to be like that.
And it will.
Yeah.
Because we've set it out from the beginning, and we are both similar.
Yes.
Which is why we were happy
to...
Which
yeah,
does
exactly,
help.
yeah. But yeah, so I think people looking at maybe being a bit more assertive, people looking at how healthy is your self-esteem. If you're worried more about other people than yourself, forget societal stigma about putting yourself first is selfish. That's a load of poppycock. And yeah, your audience. Are you surrounded by dominating people who that you fear will rear up? We probably all have them in our lives, different people who are a little bit more dominating that you do fear rearing, that will rear up. But again, life is short. Do they really belong in your life?
Well, I would say no. Guilt, fear of perception, fear of rejection, not being assertive enough, seeking praise and validation, past experiences.
Yeah.
Should we move on?
Let's move on.
Gender differences. I wanted to touch on this.
Yeah, this is really important.
But this is really important. Society struggles to accept women saying no.
Do you want a piece of cake, Jamie?
No.
Are you on a diet?
No.
No?
Do you want to ask me something else? Society demands explanations. You're going to ask me something else. I want a drink. When women say no. And that is so true, isn't it? I've often said no to a drink, and people will want an explanation as to why I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
And I think as women, we are more conditioned to be people pleasers. Now, something here, I was furious, Tracy. I was furious.
Oh dear, where's she going with this?
My lovely little niece, who's only 12.
Oh, bless her.
Oh, bless her. So I met her a couple of weeks ago with her dad, my brother, talking. She said, it doesn't really matter the backstory to it, but she's ended up in somebody's house with her mum, all fine, with a man, and he is a devout religious person.
Right. I have no idea where this is going, people.
And that's all fine. So the mum ends up in another room with this man's wife. They were just about to leave, but she gets called into the room, and my niece is stood in the hallway with this man.
Right.
She says, Auntie Jamie, she says, I wasn't happy. I said, what happened? She said, he tried to convert me to his religion.
Right.
And he stood really close to me. Ooh. She's 12 and he's very tall. So I said, how close was he? In her personal space,
right,
so within an arm's length, looking over her and not shouting, but not letting her say anything.
Right.
And talking at her.
Overbearing.
And I said to her, why did you not go into the room with your mum or walk out the front door to the car?
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I felt bad. I felt guilty. I
Yeah.
felt it would be rude. Well, I was absolutely raging. Obviously,
Yeah.
anyone at Tracy's, I can get a little bit with people
Jamie's now got
I
his
love.
address.
Yeah, I was fuming. I was absolutely fuming. So not at her, obviously,
No,
but the
the
fact
situation and what he did.
what he did. And I think that's the first time in her young life that she's felt like that. And I think I was just so angry
Yeah.
that she'd experienced that, because I know what it's like.
Yeah.
And I was so fuming. I mean, I was swearing. My brother said, stop swearing. She's only 12. I was so angry. And I told her what she must do in the future. Oh, I wanted to go around his house.
Did you say like kick him in the shins or?
I did rein it. Well, yes, I did rein it in. I said, you in the future, nobody has the right to stand in your personal space, especially not fully grown man to child.
Yeah, exactly. And he's religious as well. I mean, like, seriously.
Absolutely. You must not feel guilty. I said, all you needed to say was to put your hand up.
Yeah.
And I showed her how.
Yeah.
Could have just said, you are standing too close to me.
Yeah.
And you're making me feel really uncomfortable. Please step away.
Yeah.
In the first instance.
Yeah.
But it just struck me that even at 12, and she's been so confident up to now, she didn't want to say no because she didn't want to make him feel bad.
Yeah.
So she stood there and listened.
I reckon there's probably also an element of respect your elders.
Maybe so. But yeah, she's up till now been a very confident child. And
he's an adult, and
yes,
I have to listen to an adult.
Yeah,
and it's horrible because she's defying, like, her whole system is screaming inside, like, he's too close, I don't like this, I'm feeling uncomfortable. That's what all those emotions are, and yet she's having to mask it and deny her.
What she feels.
Just deny
We've
what
all
she
done
feels.
it, haven't
Yeah,
we? We've
exactly.
stood there and every fibre of our being is crawling.
Yeah.
And we've got to stand there and smile while we're really thinking,
get me the hell out of here.
Get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Just thought that was quite interesting to put that in there.
Yeah.
So even at 12, there it starts.
Yeah.
And I do think that is, as I say, quite gendered, you know, that I don't want to say no. And I'm going to people please and I'm going to stand there. I think that's just quite an interesting point to just note there about the differences in men and women. So I do think men, and I think men with male friends, it's just easier to say no, isn't it? You're going to come out, it's John's birthday. Nah, I'm not going to go. I
think
seems to be less repercussions.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because men are, if they have a falling out, they have words and they move on. They don't tend to bear grudges or want to sort of like make each other's life hell.
I mean,
I think there's still a certain degree of people pleasing in like the males population, or have another pint and they don't want to look like
there is a
weak.
lot of that. Yeah, you are
things
right
like
there.
that. But yeah, could you give me a hand with such and such? Yeah, I think it's definitely more swayed towards the women that struggle. And feel like we have to do it all. We have to please everyone else to validate our worth.
I agree, and I think definitely struggle in terms of saying no to social events. I think that's more difficult for women than it is for men.
Yes.
To a birthday, an engagement, a christening, to say no to those. I think women struggle.
Well, you've also got that the added fear, or if it's a social event, of if I keep saying no, I might not get invited anymore. So, yes, but if you've you've got a group of friends or a family, and you're just exhausted, or you've got a million other things to do, or whatever the reason, and you want to not do it then, or like people struggle with their mental health. Sometimes they just can't cope with it.
I think it's really important. Our first episode, we spoke about anxiety, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I spoke about my agoraphobia. And for me, it's really difficult to go out. It's much better in the last decade, as I said on that episode.
Yeah.
Prior to that, very difficult to go out.
Yeah.
I've had some awful situations where I've missed, family weddings, etc. Simply because my agoraphobia, I couldn't go.
No.
I genuinely could not get to those events.
No.
And you're right, people will get angry. You don't get invited anymore.
Yeah, what's the point in inviting her if she never comes anyway?
And that, you know...
And then you lose out long term. So
genuinely, you know, was not I genuinely could not get to those
No.
events when my illness was at its worst.
Yeah.
I couldn't go, and that was that. So there's lots of reasons why people might be saying no.
Yeah, and that's where I think the understanding, the empathy, the emotional intelligence has to come into it. And again, it goes back to, and I know it's not always easy, having those frank and honest conversations and saying, I think it's easier maybe from the person who's saying the no rather than the person like as an example, I invite you out 3 times and you say no. And you could have 3 bona fide reasons, they could all be different and it's just bad timing. I think it's maybe easier for you to say to me, look, it really honestly is nothing personal. I'd love to come and do X, Y, Z, but I'm just really busy at the moment, or this has come up on the date that you chose then, it's my niece's Christmas play or whatever, then me say, Jamie, I've invited you out 3 times now and you've said no, because it comes across a little bit accusatory, doesn't it?
It does.
So whereas I suppose from the defensive side, if you approach it and say, look, there really isn't an issue in our friendship, our relationship, or whatever the scenario is, this is what's going on. 10 years ago, I'm really struggling with agoraphobia and I'd absolutely love to come and celebrate your birthday or Christmas or whatever. I just can't get out of the house. I'm so sorry and I'm just as disappointed as you are. How can anybody not accept and understand and feel compassion towards that?
Well, and if they can't...
And if they can't, I'm going to say it once more and probably a few more times. Good. Life is short. They don't belong in your zone.
We've got to pick who's in it, haven't we?
We have. We really, really have. And we have to protect ourselves. So I know I keep harping on about that.
You carry on.
I think it's really, really important for people. We're not over-dramatising things. It could sound like that we're going a little bit overboard and it's just about sort of saying like yes or no to people. But it can really, really impact our mental health. It can impact our physical health. If you're always doing loads of things for other people, you could miss out on things that actually need doing in your life, which is going to lead to stress, or you're going to have to do twice as much work. If we're talking more of can you go and pick this up for me, can you go do this, I haven't remembered to make a costume for my child, could you do that? It can lead to so many more things on your to-do list, which is going to stress you out. Then you're not going to sleep properly, you probably aren't going to eat properly, so it can really have a real impact on both your mental health and your physical health. And as we have already briefly touched, it can actually affect your self-esteem, because every time you say yes to somebody else when you wanted or needed to say no, you're actually basically saying you're more important than I am. And that over time will erode your self-esteem.
Devaluing yourself.
Exactly.
Interestingly here, according to research by Harvard Business Review, people who struggle to say no are more prone to burnout and exhaustion. Exactly what you've just said.
Exactly.
Is that burnout and stress. So we've only got a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
If we spend it doing things for other people too frequently,
yes,
that's less time for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's not fair. We're all far too busy anyway. So it's okay, the odd favour here and the odd favour there, but when it becomes a bit more of a regular thing, or when you're having to keep the peace to say yes to things that you don't want to, then you're also going to build up resentment as well, aren't you?
The resentment builds and that festers, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's not going to be good for any relationship.
Not healthy.
So, yeah, you better off saying no.
A lot of negative impact around the mental health.
Yes.
I think almost for me, most importantly there was the feeding into the self-esteem.
Yeah.
I can never say no.
Yeah.
Any decision I make, I never follow through, because you think next time they ask me to stay late at work, I'm going to say no, and then you don't.
Yeah.
And then it feeds into this cycle that
you're not important.
You're not important, you can't achieve, you can never follow through. It's
Yeah.
such a negative cycle to be in.
Yeah.
So, Tracy, what are some strategies to say no and set boundaries, healthy boundaries? I've got some.
Okay, you can fire away. You start off.
Listeners,
Wait for it.
A great thing to do, everyone who's listened to any podcast will know I like this. First of all, sit down and think what really matters to you in your life. What are you trying to achieve with your work? What matters to you in your personal life? What are you trying to achieve with your family? Then, anything that doesn't align with your goals will be easier to say no to.
Oh, I like that.
So a little task to complete.
I've never done that.
What really matters to you?
Yeah, what really matters to you? Because you matter. Huh?
You matter.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? That is a lot more powerful than I thought it... I don't know. Is it more powerful than you thought it was going to be? Does it... Saying it out loud?
I think so.
Yeah, it's just kind of really given weight to that. First of all, I was thinking, oh yeah, just write a list. It's not actually writing a list. It's actually what matters to you.
Understanding.
What do you want your life to look like?
Exactly, what matters to you. Then, when you get that question, ask yourself, does this serve me or does it drain me? There's your answer.
Yeah.
Point number one.
Point number one. Well and truly accepted.
Shall I go to point number two
Yeah,
and then you go on?
Yeah.
So once you've decided, does it serve me or does it drain me? If it drains you, how are you going to say no? Simple, clear phrases. Work related, I can't commit to that right now. Socially, thank you for thinking of me, but I'll have to pass.
Yeah.
2 examples.
Yeah.
Difficult, we've all got our own way of communicating.
Yeah, we have.
But the point I'm trying to get across, listeners, is these are short. They're not over explanations.
No.
They're not, hi Tracy, happy Monday, thanks for messaging me, what a lovely day, hope you've had a nice weekend.
Waffle.
Anyway, thank you so
point.
much for your invitation. However, my aunt had an operation last year. It was on her hip, her right hip, because of this operation. And so we go.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, 2 pages later, we get to, therefore I won't be able to make your event. So you don't have to use those 2 lines that I just showed you there, listeners. But that's just an example of keeping it quite short.
Yeah.
People get a bit annoyed, I have found, with over explanations.
Yeah.
I've been accused of being an over-explainer.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I waffle a lot. Just in general, as you know, though.
Well, that fits then with our personalities.
Exactly.
Why use 3 words when I can use 300 words, I say. But I think it is better if you're trying, especially if you're dealing with these assertive personality. Gauge the personality.
Yes.
So the women I spoke to you about before, listeners, needed to be a very short line.
Yeah.
She's not going to go with a page of waffle. You need to just say,
no, I don't want
I don't want it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that didn't, she doesn't need any more.
Okay, so we'll add on to that then.
Go.
Know your audience.
Indeed.
Okay.
Know your audience.
Because as Jamie has just said, if it's someone who's assertive, also if it's somebody that you're never likely to see again, get that little bit of courage.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That's it.
Mirror
That's the end of it.
their attitude.
Mirror their attitude,
mirroring.
mirror their body language.
Yeah.
No, thank you. And if they say it, ask you again, no, thank you, they get bored after a while. Obviously, if they're on the phone, you can hang up. If they're at the door, I must be getting on. Very, very busy. So you can be a little bit more curt if they are people like that, salesmen, women, whatever. If it's a different scenario and it's somebody that's in your life more, then obviously you're going to have to tailor it a little bit. Now, this will hopefully help, my tip, which obviously I did sort of touch on a little bit earlier, is switching your mindset and understanding what you're saying yes and no to. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. When you're saying yes to this, you're saying no to yourself. When you're saying blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. So just say to yourself, okay, why is the person asking me to do something or inviting me to do something that I don't want to do? Why is their happiness or their time more important than mine? Now, there are always going to be occasions in life where somebody is in dire straits and they need your help.
Of course.
And you don't particularly want to do it, but it's about being a good friend, a good relative, a good citizen, or whatever. You just got to take it on the chin.
Absolutely.
And say,
Because,
maybe it was an emergency.
Emergencies
or it's
happen.
a one-off,
Yeah.
and these things. So we can't, I don't think you can ever say no to
across the
everything
board.
that you
Absolutely.
don't really like. But, so those are little anomalies you've got to let through. But other than that, if somebody's inviting you to something that you don't particularly want to do, or if somebody's asking you to do something for them, or take up your time, or lend them money, or anything, it could be anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good
you don't
one.
want to do it, just take a moment, if you can, and say to yourself, why am I contemplating pleasing them and making myself miserable?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I guarantee it will come back to your self-esteem and the fear of being rejected. But you have to live with yourself, right? Don't you deserve to be happy? Don't you deserve the time to do the things you want to do? So it's kind of like, right, well, you're with yourself 24/7 for however many years that you get on this planet. Isn't it make more sense to please yourself? You haven't got to be horrible about it and say, no, that sounds awful. Say, it's not really my thing. Or, do you know what? I've got so much going on. I've been really, really busy the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I have got time now, but I just need to decompress. So I'm really sorry that you can't do such and such, or you could do with a little bit of help with that. But maybe someone else can help you. And if you can go at it from a nicely toned, polite, non-attacking stance, if they rear up at you, it speaks volumes about who they are. And then maybe it does come down to the fact that maybe they don't belong in your circle.
I agree. I think what's becoming clear here is we've got the saying no to a sales type scenario,
yes,
where you'll often be dealing with a more aggressive individual. Saying no to the cheeky monkeys that we meet throughout our lives that often aren't friends for very long, the chancers. We need to be very direct with those people.
Yes.
We really do.
Yeah.
Because actually we just want them gone, don't we? We want to say no.
Yeah.
And, we don't want the salesman on the doorstep or wherever it might be. And the cheeky monkey, if they leave, oh well.
Yeah.
Because frankly, it was getting a bit annoying. So
Exactly.
we've got that. That's very direct. We've got work scenarios where you're going to be a little bit less direct, but still professional and still get the point across. And that will often be people asking you to do more, take on more, work
they're going to put on you.
They're going to put on you.
Yeah.
And then we've got the most tricky one of all, which is the social side with people that friends.
Yeah.
Where you will want to offer a bit more of an explanation.
Yeah, or an alternative.
Or an alternative.
Yeah.
But just not an over explanation. I think the only thing to remember when you feel guilty or you worry about the repercussions is if the worst is going to happen and that person turns around and says, oh, I'm never going to speak to you again. Well, they obviously were not a friend in the first place.
No, exactly.
Not somebody you want in your life anyway.
No.
Because you're just worried. If you then go, oh, all right, I'll come, then what happens the next time they invite? And you think, oh, God, for the next 40 years, I've got to go to everything this person invites me to.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it's going to happen again. And you've then set the tone, haven't you?
Yeah,
if you've let them bully you into it, you can never then say no, can you?
And as we said before, it's like once you've said yes and allowed that pattern to begin, it's so much harder to break. And they are going to rear up at you because they're going to be like, well, hang on, for the last 20 years, you've never said no. So why are you now? It's going to be a bigger thing than if you start off, as you were saying, what did you say at the beginning? Man your stall or something.
What did I say?
Was it man your stall or...
Oh,
man
set out your stall.
Set out your stall.
Yeah, so whenever you change in a relationship, there's often resistance to that.
Because people want you to be like you used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listener questions.
Yes, let's get to them.
Great ones.
Okay.
Tina, what if I feel guilty saying no to family or friends? Tina. As we've said, Tina, this is the most difficult one, really.
Yeah, because they're in your life, I suppose.
They're in your life. You care for them. Their opinion is important to you. You've got to put yourself first.
You've got to put yourself first. And this goes back to what I was saying about having those frank conversations.
Guilt is temporary, Tina, but burnout, resentment,
Ill
and
health.
a negative impact on your health is long term.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to remember.
Yeah. So just go back to my point of who's more important.
Who's more important?
Yeah. To you, you're more important.
You offer the mini explanation,
Yep.
Tina, to the friends. Not an over explanation, but a mini explanation. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
I just have too much on.
Yeah.
And I don't feel well enough. I'm too tired.
Exactly.
And Tina, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, if it is a social event that you could, like my explanation earlier, my example, where I can't do it right now, but could we reschedule or could we do something ourselves later, then offer that.
Oh, offer the alternative.
Offer the alternative.
Yeah. I mean, what you've said there, Tracy, I think that's a great tip, Tina. So if you offer something else that you could go and do if it's an event that you're being asked to.
But something that does serve you. Don't kind of jump out the frying pan into the fire going, right, well, I can't do it today because I'm like dead on my feet, but I suppose I could do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about yourself and think, actually, when could I feasibly do that? When do I feasibly want to do that? And offer that as the alternative.
Thing is, gang, we can't, especially if you get older, we can't burn the candle at both ends. Well, maybe some people can, but I can't.
I can't anymore.
And I really don't go out in the evening, hardly at all. I am just simply too tired. I get up really early and I exercise very, very early. And Tracy, you and I work all day, don't we? I am tired and I cannot be tired the next day and then get up, perform, do my workouts, obviously live on air.
Yeah.
I can't think straight.
No.
I don't want to be so tired that I land badly out of a jumping jack and twist my ankle. I don't want to be so tired that I give the wrong direction.
No.
I just can't do it.
No.
Breakfast is better for me. Brunch.
Yeah.
I always say to people, can we go out for a brunch?
Yeah.
So I can do my morning work and then go out mid-morning. And I think, well, if people can't accept that, well, then that's that.
Yeah, and that's how it has to be, doesn't it?
Because I'm just not going to make myself unwell
No.
and tired.
At the end of the day, when we're at the end of our day,
Yeah.
we are not going to look back on life and go, I really regret not washing Uncle Edna's car or Uncle Edna again.
It's Uncle Edna.
It's always Uncle.
Tracy's getting tired, listeners, and this is what we're saying.
See,
this is what we need our sleep. It's Uncle Edna. It's the end of the day, listeners.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, Auntie Edna, Uncle Ralph, whoever, you're not going to get to the end of your life and regret not doing those things for other people. You're going to get to the end of your life if you don't make a change now, and you are going to regret not living the life that you wanted, the one that you dreamed of living as many happy memories as possible. And people need to remember that.
I think that's absolutely right. Be kind.
Yeah,
obviously,
you haven't got to be rude.
always be kind.
Be kind.
But if people can't respect you for who you are and how you feel, well, then really,
it's your life, and you are just as important as everyone else.
you are just as important.
But you are the most important to yourself.
So, Tina, try.
Hopefully that helps.
Hopefully that helps. Moving on, Katie, how do I say no without sounding rude?
Simple.
Yeah.
Just adjust your tone.
Just exactly that.
Just adjust your tone. That is all that needs to be said really there, Katie. You don't have to shout. You don't have to be assertive unless it's a salesperson. Someone you're never going to see again. If it's somebody near and dear, then a soft tone, a short explanation, a sense of compassion, empathy in your voice. I'm really sorry, but I just can't do that right now.
And that's all you really
It's not
need to say.
rude.
No, it's not rude. I think we do worry, and I do think that's more gendered for women, about how it's going to come across.
Yeah.
Rather than just writing the decline and not worrying about it.
That's the other thing that you've just made me think. Do it audibly.
Well, that can often be better.
Yeah, because people can misconstrue written.
Vast.
Yeah. It depends on the frame of the mind of the person reading it as to
it.
how they are going to interpret your words. So either face-to-face, in a phone call, or the very worst, a voice message. in this day and age.
It's better to get that
Get your
across.
tonality across.
But I do think, I mean, Katie, it does make me laugh. And my brother would just, I mean, he would just write back, oh, cheers, mate. Even if it was a big birthday, a 40th, cheers, mate, can't make that night. And that would be that. He wouldn't even think twice.
No, exactly.
That would be the immediate response.
And that's not even rude either.
And the mate would text back and go, all right, mate. And that'd be that.
No worries.
And I think, I'm not sure why I've ended up in my life getting involved in all of this high emotion. And our lives have been very, very different. The way he has interplayed with his friends and even then work, very different. And he says to me, your life's like a TV drama. He said, I don't understand why it's all happening to you. When we were a bit younger, in our 30s. Exactly. And he would just, I can tell you that's what he would do.
That's male to male, isn't it?
Male to male.
He knows he can say that.
Oh, there'd be
he's got no
worries
about himself. So he's like, that's fine. If you don't invite me again, never mind. We move. That's what Bradley always says to me. Oh, they didn't like it, we move. I don't really know what that means. I think it was
move on. Is it?
Probably.
Yes, yeah.
But you've got that, and then obviously his friend who's received the text, he's male as well. He's going, oh, never mind.
I know, and we're in tortures over
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if we sometimes overthink.
Yeah, but it's not just you and me, Jamie.
No, it's not just you and me.
It's just the female race, I think.
I agree. Katie, you just need to, as Tracy has said, we're not just going to send back a one word, and ideally not a text at all. So if you can do it face to face is better, ideally, or over the phone or a voice note.
Yeah, you've got to get the tonality across.
And then people can hear that.
Yeah.
And then finally, Dave.
What's he asking?
How do I set boundaries at work without jeopardising my job? Tracy.
Okay, right. Well, that kind of depends on what your boss is like.
Absolutely.
You need to be a little bit assertive, but not arrogant. A good one, depending on obviously what they're asking you to do, Dave. If they're asking you to do overtime, I would say, this is something that I taught the boys actually, is if you're asked to do overtime, you want to do it. If you don't mind doing it, but don't necessarily really want to do it, then do it sparingly, because once you start saying yes a lot, then it goes back to that pattern. It's expected. So if it's that, make a decision in your head. Do you want to do overtime once a month? Do you want to do it every week? How does it work? The fact that you're asking you want to set boundaries suggests that you don't want to do this stuff. Is this a really bad thing that I kind of want to say you could always lie to your work? I'm really busy, or I've got to look after the kids, or something like that. And a really good one, depending on obviously what type of profession he's in, you can say, yeah, sure, that's no problem, but the quality might not be what you're used to, because I've got a lot on my plate already to get that done in that time frame.
That's a good one.
Or it might not be as in depth.
I really like that one.
Because then probably, unless they're really up against it, probably not going to like the fact that it's going to be less quality than they're used to. So then you're kind of highlighting to them, you're asking me to do more than I'm capable of in that time frame. So you choose whether you want it done to 80% standard, or whether you're going to realise actually the quality is more important than the quantity, and you're going to say, don't worry, we'll ask Bob.
I think there's two things at work, isn't there? There's working outside of your set hours, like you've just said, the overtime question and how you deal with that. And then there's being given more work within your work hours than you can feasibly do. Dave, it's going back to the first point, which is understanding what truly matters to you, so you can say no to what doesn't align with your goals. When that comes to work, if thinking about what do you want to achieve with your work, where do you want to go? Are you only there for a year? In which case, none of that matters, does it? Just say no, because you're leaving anyway. What I would say, Dave, if that's a job you wish to keep and progress forward in, is that I think it's short-term thinking to think, if I do over and above my contracted hours, and if I do over and above my work and I take on more, yes, you might move on next year, but that's then the stall you set out.
That's
And
the expected level.
That's the expectation, and then it never stops.
Yeah.
And then you might have another 20 years of that.
Yeah.
You're better off to set those boundaries now, perform really well within those expected hours and the work you're, expected to do, but be quite clear that you're not going to do anything, outside of that. Or like Tracy said, I can do that, but the quality might not be as good as it normally is.
Yeah.
Because I can't devote the time to it.
No, exactly.
Dave, you're setting the boundaries firmly but fairly. It's not being rude, is it?
It's not being rude, and you haven't got to be arrogant.
And I would say, Dave, if you felt that even if you laid that out firmly and fairly, that would still jeopardise your job, well, then we come back to the question, is that really the company you want to be working for? And I know we can't all necessarily be too choosy.
No.
And it might take a while, but you might want to start to think about moving somewhere else, or being in a relationship. If you can't say no in a relationship without potentially thinking, God, I might jeopardise that relationship.
Yeah.
Well, is it one that you want to be
No,
in?
exactly.
You walk on eggshells for the rest of your life.
That's where you're kind of almost wasting your life. And okay, we can't all be doing cartwheels every day with excitement and happiness.
Of course not, but we don't want to be living in fear.
We don't want to be living in
That
fear.
we could be sacked every day or dumped by our significant other. That's no way to live.
Well, that's not good for your mental health or your physical health or your emotional health or anything.
Absolutely not.
So it really does depend on the situation. The other thing I was going to say is if it's a particular, say it's a one-off project, make sure, Dave, that you get across, yes, that's not a problem. I can do that this time, or I can, as a one-off, I'm happy to put in the extra hours for this big presentation or whatever it is, but get across that as a one-off. Or I'm happy to do it this time because
X, Y, Z.
I've got a little bit of free time.
Yeah.
Or I can move some other bits around that don't need to be done right now.
Yeah.
But you just really got to set your boundaries.
Dave, I hope that is helpful. And I know Tracy and I wanted to leave our listeners with some actionable steps, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Can I go first?
You can go
first. I love
first.
this one. Again, it's a bit of me really here. Gang, create a boundary list. This feeds into Dave's last question. So what you need to do is write down areas you need stronger boundaries in. Might be all of them, but work, relationships, personal time, social engagement. So just spend a few moments or a week, but identify what areas, first of all, you need stronger boundaries in.
Yep.
Thinking about what's aligning with your goal.
Yeah.
1. Tracy.
Okay, so I'm going to go kind of a little bit back to the mindset side of things that I was saying earlier. Who am I saying yes to? Who's more important? Take the time to think if you can. If you're put on the spot, I just need to check my diary. Or blame the other half. I've got to check with so-and-so when I get home. Give yourself a little bit of time. Do you want to do it? Yes. If the answer is immediately yes, go for it. If your initial gut reaction is, oh God, or oh, I don't want to do that, oh, I can't do that, really think about who's this serving? Is this something that if this was repeated next week and the week after and the week after, that I'd happily do? Or is this going to start to build resentment within this friendship, relationship, work dynamic? If resentment is going to start growing from this, should it carry on, then you've got to say no.
I like to call that use a pause rule.
Oh.
So, as you said, whenever someone asks for something, get a pause in there. I'll come back to you later.
Yeah.
I need to check my diary.
Yeah.
Just take a moment before you respond.
Yeah.
And then exactly as Tracy has said, consider.
Yeah.
Are you doing it out of obligation
Yeah.
to somebody else, or doing it out of a genuine desire because you want to?
Yeah.
Those are things to consider. Tracy, shall I go?
You go.
Practice your no script. Preparation is everything. So my final tip, firstly, create your boundary list. Where do you need to work on? Secondly, Tracy says, use a pause rule. I'm going to tell you, practice your no script. You've already considered your boundary list. You already know what area it's going to be. Let's say it's work. So you know it's work. Potentially going to be an email then. Probably not going to be a WhatsApp. Going to be an email or a face-to-face.
Yeah, usually.
Spend some time on the internet. There's so many resources out there.
Yeah.
Look at different ways of saying no. There'll be plenty of resources on how to write an email, declining an offer of more work. There'll be so much out there for you to look at. Have your little templates ready to go. If it's a face-to-face, again, get that ready. How are you going to open it?
That's a good.
What are you going to lead with? What are some key phrases you're going to put in there? Preparation is key.
Yeah.
So that when you are then in the moment, obviously you've got your little pause.
Yeah.
But then when you go back after your pause, you've got it in your head. Because you're in a state, aren't you? When you get put on the spot, you might say, let me just check my diary, but you might only have 5 minutes. And then you're all in a state. You want to have those templates written in your notes in your phone.
I love that.
Yeah, you can pull out.
Yeah, rather than saying a load of rubbish or whatever it is, and then later going, oh, I should have said that. You've pre-prepared it.
Pre-prepared, key phrasing, and then you're just going to insert in what's relevant.
Exactly.
Do you know
what it's like Blue Peter back in the day? Here's one I made earlier.
Here's one I made, yes. Please bear with me while I roll out my pre-prepared template. But that will help. That will really help.
It sounds initially a little bit nuts.
Yeah, but it's not.
But it's not.
Honestly, I promise you, this is key.
I'm actually going to try this.
I have templates for lots of things. It's key.
Yeah.
It's really helpful and handy.
Yeah.
And it helps you when you're in a state, because maybe you feel stressed that you've got to go back with a note. Can't think clearly when we're stressed, can we?
Clearly,
God, what shall I say? What shall I say? How shall I phrase it? It's already there.
Yeah.
Or do you just pick one?
Yeah.
Use that one and then let it go.
Then let it go.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
Whatever happens going to happen. You're going to deal with it and move.
You can't control the other people.
As your son says.
Yeah. We move.
We move. Top tips.
I've got one more.
Go on, Tracy.
My top tip.
Yeah.
Which I did kind of hint at earlier, especially for females. Check your self-esteem. Do a little bit of work on your self-esteem, on your self-worth, and really explore why you're seeking external validation. Can't even speak. Why does it matter so much that you please these other people over and above yourself? Because I promise you, once you work on your own self-esteem and you realise how amazing you are, how lovable, how likeable, how you have something to bring to the table, to this world, whatever, it won't bother you as much. Not saying that it's not going to bother you to upset other people, but you will realise your worth, and you'll realise that your time, your energy, your happiness is precious, and equally as precious as the next person. So why should you be miserable? You shouldn't. So if you work on that, it will all just become that little bit easier. And quite often, and I've alluded to this in our self-esteem episode, when you put your boundaries in place and you reinforce them when you have a stronger self-esteem, quite often there'll be a percentage of people who will just bow down and they will stop treating you and pushing on your boundaries the way they previously did. So that's really important, and people might think, well, what's that got to do with it? But it really does have a huge thing, because the reason we don't say no is because at the end of the day, we don't want to be rejected. We want to feel loved and connected on this earth. That's my final tip.
Create a boundary list. Use a pause rule. Practice your no script. Work on your self-esteem. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying no to your own peace, your own energy and your own happiness, and you don't know anyone an explanation for protecting your mental health.
I love that.
On that note, Tracy, another great episode. I've really enjoyed this one.
I really have, and I think I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of people out there who really dive in deep to this and take note of the tips and the things that we've said, and they really look at it from a different perspective.
I agree.
Because I think it's a game changer, as we said earlier. If we could go back and retract all the yeses that we said that we didn't mean to,
yeah, I could take a year's holiday.
Exactly. There would be a huge, great
Yeah.
win for ourselves. You
Yeah.
know, we would get a lot back.
Yeah.
So if from now on, if people implement these things, and even if it's just the little ones, it's going to make an impact.
Start small.
For the better. Yes, start
Be
small.
consistent.
Absolutely.
If you've got any questions for us or any ideas for future episodes, you can email us, can't you, Tracy?
You can.
At
wellbeingunwrapped@gmail.com.
Guys, thank you so much for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Thank you for listening to Wellbeing Unwrapped. If you found this episode helpful today, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with anyone you think might benefit.
Yes, Jamie, the more reviews we get, the more people we can reach and help with our podcast.
And don't forget to reach out to us at wellbeingunwrapped@gmail.com with your feedback and any questions you may have for our next episode.